Hey there, amazing listeners. Welcome back to engNatural, where we help you learn English naturally with daily podcasts. I'm Puck, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that I truly believe is the secret sauce for achieving anything in life, especially when you're trying to master a new skill or build a habit. We're talking about progress over perfection, the only mindset you need for fluency. Have you ever felt stuck, frozen by the fear of not being good enough? Or maybe you start something with a lot of enthusiasm, but then you get bogged down trying to make it absolutely perfect, and eventually you just give up. If that sounds familiar, then this episode is for you. We're going to explore why chasing perfection can be a real roadblock and how embracing consistent progress, no matter how small, can actually lead to incredible breakthroughs. So get ready to shift your perspective because by the end of this, I hope you'll feel inspired to just start, to just do, and to trust the journey. And hey, if you find value in what we do here at engNatural, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. It really helps us keep these conversations going and reach more people who want to learn English naturally, just like you. So, let's kick things off by really understanding what we mean when we talk about progress over perfection. On one side, you have perfectionism. It's this idea that everything you do must be flawless, without any mistakes, or it's simply not good enough. It's a high standard, right? But often it's an unachievably high standard. It can lead to a lot of stress, anxiety, and even procrastination because you're so afraid of making a mistake that you just don't start at all. You know, I remember a few years ago, I was going through a really tough time. I felt overwhelmed and my energy was just drained. I had this ambitious personal project I wanted to start, writing a short story collection. But every time I sat down, I'd get paralyzed. I'd think, this has to be perfect. Every sentence, every paragraph, every plot point needs to be brilliant. And guess what? I wrote almost nothing. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the blank page just stared back at me, mocking me. It was exhausting, just the thought of writing. I was stuck in this loop of wanting to create something amazing, but being so afraid of not meeting my own impossible standards that I couldn't even put a single word down. It was a really dark period. My motivation plummeted, and I started to feel like a failure, not because I wrote something bad, but because I wrote nothing. Then, one morning, I was listening to a podcast, funny, right? And the speaker talked about the idea of showing up. Not showing up perfectly, but just showing up consistently. And it was like a light bulb went off. I thought, what if I just commit to writing for 15 minutes every day, no matter what? No pressure for it to be good, just to write. That very day, I did it. I set a timer, opened my laptop, and just typed whatever came to mind for 15 minutes. It was messy. It was full of typos. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I did it. And the next day, I did it again. That tiny shift from demanding perfection to simply demanding presence changed everything. The momentum started to build. Those messy 15 minutes started to turn into more coherent thoughts, then sentences, then paragraphs. And over time, without even realizing it, I wasn't just working on that one project. This mindset of just show up, just make progress started seeping into other areas of my life. My morning routine became more consistent. My workouts were more regular, and even my daily tasks felt less daunting. It was a complete transformation. It wasn't about the grand, perfect outcome anymore. It was about the small, consistent steps forward. It was about trusting the process and understanding that even a tiny step, if taken every day, leads to miles of progress. So that's the core of it. Progress over perfection isn't about lowering your standards or being sloppy. It's about strategic. It's about understanding that consistent effort, even if it's flawed, will always beat perfect inaction. And when you embrace that, it truly liberates you to just begin and keep going. Now that we've talked about what progress over perfection means and how it can change your life, let's dig a bit deeper into recognizing the two sides of this coin. The subtle signs of perfectionism that might be holding you back versus the liberating mindset of embracing progress. It's not always obvious, you know? Sometimes what we think is a good trait, a desire for high quality, can actually be a perfectionism trap in disguise. One common sign of perfectionism is procrastination. Oh, that familiar feeling. You have a task, maybe it's an important email, a project at work, or even something fun like planning a trip. But because you want it to be absolutely perfect, you find yourself delaying, overthinking, and waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect idea. And of course, the perfect moment never arrives, does it? So you just don't start. It's like your brain thinks, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. Another big one is the fear of making mistakes. It's so powerful, isn't it? This fear can make you avoid new challenges, or if you do try, you might obsess over every little detail, constantly self-correcting to the point of exhaustion. And then there's the self-criticism. Perfectionists are often their own harshest critics. You achieve something great, but instead of celebrating, you immediately focus on the one tiny flaw. It's a relentless cycle that can lead to burnout and a feeling of never being good enough. I remember a time when I was trying to learn how to bake. Not just simple cookies, mind you, but these elaborate, multi-layered cakes with intricate frosting. My first attempt was, well, terrible. The layers were uneven, the frosting was gloopy, and it definitely didn't look like the picture. My immediate thought was, I'm a complete failure. I should just stick to things I'm naturally good at. I threw the whole thing out and almost gave up baking entirely. It's funny now, but at the time, it felt like a monumental disaster. It was a classic perfectionism trap. I focused on the flawless end product, not the learning process. In contrast, the progress mindset celebrates those small wins. It's about acknowledging that every step, no matter how tiny, moves you forward. When I eventually went back to baking, I started with simple recipes. My first batch of cookies wasn't perfect, but they were edible, and I learned something about oven temperature. That's embracing progress. You learn from the mistakes, but you don't let them define you. You see them as valuable feedback, not as proof of your inadequacy. It's about being willing to try, even if you know you won't be perfect from day one. It's about focusing on effort over outcome. Did you show up today? Did you give it your best shot, even if your best shot wasn't a masterpiece? Then that's a win. This shift in perspective transforms the entire experience. Instead of a source of stress and frustration, the journey becomes an opportunity for growth and learning. You're not waiting for perfection to arrive, you're building it, piece by piece, day by day. And that, my friends, is truly liberating. All right, so we've identified the pitfalls of perfectionism and started to understand the freedom of a progress mindset. Now, let's get practical. How do we actually cultivate this progress over perfection mindset? How do we build those good habits that keep us moving forward even when things aren't ideal? The first strategy, and it's a big one, is consistency over intensity. This means taking small, achievable steps every single day, rather than waiting for one big, perfect block of time or burst of motivation. Think about it, 20 minutes of focused effort daily is far more effective than one 8-hour marathon session once a month. The consistency builds momentum. It's like tending a garden. You don't just water it perfectly once a month and expect it to flourish. You give it a little water, a little light, a little care every day. Another key is setting small, realistic goals. These are often called micro habits. Instead of saying, I'm going to write a novel, you say, I'm going to write one paragraph every day. Or instead of, I'm going to become fluent in English, you say, I'm going to listen to one engNatural podcast episode for 10 minutes every day. The goal here isn't the size of the task, but the act of showing up and completing it. Each small success builds confidence and reinforces the habit loop. It makes the habit so easy to start that you almost can't say no to it. And speaking of reinforcement, focusing on effort over outcome is crucial. We often get caught up in the final product, but when you're building a new skill or habit, the process is the win. Did you try? Did you show up? Did you put in the time? If the answer is yes, then you've succeeded for that day, regardless of the perfection of the outcome. This also ties into building a system of self-compassion. We're all human. We're going to have off days. We're going to miss a step. Instead of beating yourself up, practice self-forgiveness. Say, okay, I missed today, but I'll get back on track tomorrow. That gentle push, rather than harsh criticism, is what keeps you going long-term. Now, for an unexpected tip that I've found incredibly effective in my own life, the good enough rule. For someone who used to get trapped by perfectionism, this was a game changer. When I'm working on something, whether it's an email, a project, or even cooking a meal, I tell myself, is this good enough to serve its purpose? Not, is this perfect? Not, is this the absolute best I can do? But, is it good enough to achieve what I need it to achieve? It's surprisingly liberating. It helps you put a cap on overthinking, over-editing, and endless tweaking. It allows you to complete tasks and move on, generating that forward momentum. For example, if I'm writing an outline for a new podcast episode, instead of spending hours making it flawless, I'll aim for good enough to guide the conversation. And you know what? It almost always is. So remember, small steps, consistent effort, celebrate the process, be kind to yourself, and embrace the good enough. These strategies will pave the way for real, sustainable progress. We've laid the groundwork for cultivating a progress mindset. But what happens when obstacles pop up? And how do we break those old perfectionist habits that tend to sneak back in? It's crucial to acknowledge that breaking old habits, especially deeply ingrained ones like perfectionism, isn't a straight line. It's a journey with twists and turns, and sometimes you might feel like you're taking a step backward. That's totally normal. The first step in breaking those habits is identifying your triggers. What situations, feelings, or thoughts usually lead to that perfectionist paralysis or the desire to procrastinate? Is it when you're overwhelmed? When you're comparing yourself to others? When you feel a lack of control? Once you know your triggers, you can start to develop strategies to replace the negative response with a more productive one. For example, if you know comparing yourself to others on social media makes you feel inadequate and halts your progress, then maybe your strategy is to limit social media time or unfollow accounts that trigger those feelings. Another powerful strategy is to replace negative self-talk with positive reframing. Instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, I'll never get it right, try, I'm learning, and every attempt helps me improve. It sounds simple, but reframing your internal dialogue can significantly change your emotional state and your willingness to keep going. Seeking support can also be incredibly helpful. This doesn't necessarily mean a formal coach or therapist, though it certainly can. It could be finding an accountability partner, sharing your goals with a friend, or even just having an internal dialogue where you're your own cheerleader. And this brings me to a personal story about overcoming setbacks. For years, I struggled with overthinking and overplanning almost everything. I couldn't just start a task, I had to map out every single possible scenario, every potential problem, and plan for it. It was exhausting, and it ate up so much time that I often had little energy left to actually do the thing. I tried setting strict deadlines, telling myself, just do it, but I'd often fail. I'd fall back into the old habit of endless planning. It was frustrating. I felt like I was constantly battling my own brain. There was one project, a new content series I was developing. I outlined it, re-outlined it, thought about every possible angle, spent weeks just in the planning phase. And then I got so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of my own perfect plan that I almost didn't launch it. My turning point came when a friend, who noticed my struggle, said, "Puck, what's the minimum viable product? What's the good enough version you can launch today?" And that resonated so deeply with the good enough rule we talked about earlier. I realized that my pursuit of a perfect launch was actually preventing any launch at all. So I forced myself to simplify. I cut out 80% of the planned content, focused on one core idea, and launched a bare bones version. It wasn't perfect, I made mistakes, but it was out there. And the feedback I got helped me improve the next version and the one after that. The biggest lesson? Self-forgiveness. When I fell back into over-planning, I learned to say, okay, that happened. Now how do I adjust? How do I get back on track? Instead of dwelling on the failure. This mindset allowed me to experiment, fail, learn, and try again without the crushing weight of perfectionism. It's about building resilience, accepting that setbacks are part of the journey, and always giving yourself the grace to keep moving forward, even imperfectly. Wow, we've covered a lot today, haven't we? From defining the progress over perfection mindset to identifying the traps of perfectionism, and then equipping ourselves with practical strategies to cultivate consistent progress and overcome obstacles. Remember, it's not about being flawless, it's about being consistent. It's about showing up, even when you don't feel like it, and celebrating those small, imperfect steps forward. Because every single one of those steps takes you closer to where you want to be. The journey to mastery, in any area of life, is rarely a straight line. There will be bumps, detours, and moments where you feel like you're not making any progress at all. But if you hold on to this mindset, if you consistently prioritize showing up and taking action, you will undoubtedly achieve remarkable things. Your growth isn't measured by perfection, but by the accumulation of your efforts. So, give yourself permission to be imperfect, to learn, to stumble, and to keep going. Thank you so much for joining me today on engNatural. It's truly a pleasure to share these insights with you. Before we sign off, I'd love to hear from you. What's one area in your life where you're going to try to embrace progress over perfection this week? Share your thoughts with us on social media using hashtag engNaturalProgress or send us a message. We love hearing from our community. Until next time, keep making progress, keep learning naturally, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.